Hello and welcome to another episode of The Blind Truth, but instead of Phil being the person asking all the questions today, we've got a bit of role reversal going on, haven't we, Phil? And I'm going to be asking Phil about his life, much more interesting than mine.
Oh, I doubt it very much, but thank you anyway.
It's a pleasure to be here in your studio.
Yeah, it's me as well to see you.
Is it weird, me asking the question?
It's yeah, do you know what? I don't think you've ever come to the studio for any reason and it's not been weird.
It's true, that is true. Weird circumstances, weird jobs, self-tapes.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And insisting we do 500 takes of everything we do. And,
guilty.
Yeah, but you know what though? It works, doesn't it?
It paid off, didn't it?
Absolutely. If only we could tell them.
I know, if only we could say.
You could say, what, you've got a massive job.
I've got a big job in the pipeline. I'm waiting for a visa, put it that way, a work visa to come through.
And we're all very excited, like a dog with two whatsits, aren't we?
We are. But enough about that. I want to know about you, Phil. So you're an entrepreneur, you're an inventor, you're a filmmaker.
Yep.
You've had some pretty crazy things happen to you in your time. You've had some very unfortunate things.
Yep.
You've been in some very difficult circumstances.
All of that.
And I want to know where it all started. Take me right back to the beginning when you were a young boy. Where did it all start?
Well, as a young boy, I was the youngest of lots of brothers, 2 full ones and 4 half brothers, 3 of which I've never even met.
Wow.
But I was, and I don't want to start playing the violin too early, but I was bullied on a daily basis by my brothers. And what it did do was give me a tough character, if you like. I'm not a tough person, I'm not like a fighting tough guy or anything, but I just learned to conquer and go around things and move on regardless of how people did me wrong, basically. And that, I got that from, and that, it came in. I was miserable as a child because it was constant, it was daily. Not helped by my dad leaving when I was 12. And his parting words were, "It's because of that little bastard."
Pointing to you? To
me. So then everything that went wrong after that, they all blamed me because he did. Lack of money. We were very, very poor, by the way. I mean, really poor.
Did you grow up in Manchester?
Yeah, it was Stockport actually, but we moved to Levenshulme when I was, midway through, if you like. I class myself as a Levenshulme boy, but was born in Stepping Hill in Stockport.
Yeah.
We were on the way to the MRI apparently with my mother, and would you believe they had a blackout?
Oh.
The lights failed, so we had to divert to Stepping Hill.
Nothing that we do is ever straightforward, is it?
It's just so bizarre, isn't it? I know, considering I went into lighting later on as part of my entrepreneurial career.
Yeah.
Which is a bit weird, really. But officially we lived in Didsbury.
Yeah.
So it's kind of Manchester, isn't it? But it's South Manchester. It's the posh bit, really.
So your dad left when you were 12?
Yeah. And
would you say, having gone through that when you were younger, has it helped make you the person you are today? Yeah, without a doubt.
It toughened my spirit, if you like. I'm not a great believer. I'm an atheist, as you probably know, and I'm not a great believer in spiritual stuff. But it gave me a resilience and a dogma about my character where I just don't quit. Even no matter how tough it gets. I'm not a quitter, never have been. And sometimes I should have. I know that with hindsight. And sometimes I'm glad I didn't.
So what was your first job then? What was the first thing you set out to do, work-wise?
I didn't set out to do it, but at the time, when as I turned 15, 16, there was a thing called a YOP scheme, which was long before your time. And it stood for Youth Opportunity Scheme. And it was a set wage of £27.50 a week.
Wow, £27.50 a week?
A week. And it was hard graft. I was shredding paper.
You were a paper shredder?
I was a paper shredder. It was the very first job I did. In fact, that's full-time job. While I was at school, I worked on a city farm. Okay. In Mabon's farm in Heaton Chapel. So I'd get up in the morning before school and I would deliver the milk from this farm, go to school all day, and then after school I'd go back to the farm, bring the cows in, milk them, put it into bottles, put it into crates ready for the next morning's delivery.
Wow.
Because I was a dad at 14.
I never knew this about you.
Yeah, I was a dad at 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm 59 years old and I've got a 45-year-old son.
Wow. Being a dad at 14, then I was going to ask what was next in the pipeline for you, but being a father, by the sounds of things.
Well, I mean, I was. It was first go, if you know what I mean.
Brilliant.
Nobody.
Did you not listen in PSHE in school?
We didn't have PSHE in school
back then. No.
So it was. She was 14, so was I. We were in the same class.
Yeah.
Ailsa, shout out if you're watching. Never seen her since. But it was. I was reaching out for something because I was so miserable. I had really low self-esteem. And really low. I felt crap about myself, you know. This event happened, and I wanted it so badly. I was ready to be a dad, believe it or not, even though I was very, very immature as a 14-year-old.
Do you think part of that was to put right what happened between you and your father?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was. I was determined to do it better. So that's why, because I went to the farm, did what I've just said before about delivering the milk, milking the cows themselves, and I sent every penny up to Scotland, which is where he was raised.
Oh, wow.
A little bit from my mum because she needed it too.
Yeah.
But
at the age of 14.
At the age of 14, so and it taught me again the mettle to get out of bed when you just can't be asked. Be on time, be respectful. I did all these things kind of naturally, and they paid off in the end, one way or another. But so working before that, then I went to do the paper shredded on the YOP scheme. And I did various little warehouse jobs and stuff. I think my record was... I was very hot-headed as a youngster. I was an angry young man because of the bullying, really.
Understandably.
Yeah, and I did a job for 9 minutes once.
Okay. I feel like that's a record.
Yeah, it might well be. I'd done a previous job. I worked on a golf course, cutting the grass and stuff. And then it all went a bit ugly. It wasn't really my environment. I was rough and angry, and this was kind of poshish. You know, it didn't work out anyway. And I didn't like the fact that it was monthly pay either. I was hoping to get paid every week in cash. I needed it, you know. So when I left there, I went to this other job at Tamar Gas in Stockport.
Okay.
In Weir Mill. And I'd literally just pitched up on my first day, and I was about 8 or 9 minutes in, and someone just mentioned about monthly pay, and I'm like, what? No, I'm not doing monthly pay again. And they said, well, I'm afraid that's how it is here. And I said, not for me, it ain't. And the coat was on, and I was gone. So that was the end of that job.
There's a bit of a life lesson in that, though, isn't there? There's a lot of people out there that don't know what they want to do in life.
Yeah.
And they're still figuring it out. And I was one of those people for a long time, and actually... you learn as you go on is what you don't want to do, and that's just as valuable, I think, as learning what 100%. You do want to do.
100%. I think it's recognising the signs as well, that when things just aren't right for you. And that's something that only comes with age and experience, I think. But there comes a time where you have to say, right, I'm going to do this. You get a flag, you plant it in the ground, and this is how I'm going to identify. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do.
It takes a while to get to that point sometimes, doesn't it? But
some people never do.
Yeah, but that's the risk you take with it carrying on for too long. We were just having this conversation before, weren't we, before we started rolling, and there's so many things you can do if you've got the willingness and confidence and work ethic to do it, but then at some point you do have to be selective and really give it your all. Otherwise, my dad has a saying that his grandma used to say to him all the time: if you try and catch too many rabbits at once, they'll all get away.
Yeah, it's true.
If you try and catch one, you'll catch it every time.
Focus on one. And then, once you've got that one in the box, then start looking at the others again.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
So from the golf course, from the gas company, where are we next?
And it was various warehouse jobs then, and I discovered very late, as it turns out, the sport of snooker.
Okay.
And I became a professional snooker player.
You keep surprising. I've known you for a long time now, and this is why I've been looking forward to sitting down and chatting to you, because I think there's a lot that I don't know that I'm about to learn. Yeah,
I still do love my snooker, but obviously with the vision I have now, there's a reason why they call me Mr. Magoo. I'm centrally blind. I can't even see the end of the cue now.
And we'll get onto that later on as well, in more in depth.
But with the snooker, I just loved it, and as in all things that I've ever done, bearing in mind the flag in the ground thing we just discussed, I decided I want to be a professional snooker player. And it was way too late. I didn't pick a cue up till I was 19.
Okay.
Most world-class players start at 6 or 7.
Oh, wow.
So they start very young on a little table, and it was never in my wheelhouse because it was, as I say, we were that poor, looking to have a table to eat off and mind play snooker on.
Yeah.
So when I found it, I completely fell in love with it because I was naturally good at it. And as most left-handed people are, weirdly, turns out. But
so that's why I'm no good at snooker, because I'm right-handed.
Well, maybe. But I just found it very easy to learn.
Yeah.
It was too late. I didn't know it at the time, but what I decided to do, as I always do, is I dedicated myself to it. And I was playing 70 hours a week. 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. Practice. And I just... excuse me. I got something called the yips. Okay. Which you might know as tennis elbow.
Ah, right.
There's one in snooker where there's a certain technique when you're playing the game. It sounds a bit daft for someone that's not a player. I just couldn't let the shot go. Okay. It just wouldn't go. So you go into your routine, addressing the ball, feathering it as it's called. And on the last one, you pause and punch. That's how you play snooker properly. And on the pause, it just locked and it just wouldn't go. Wow. And it was a mental thing. My coach said I was overtraining. Which has always been my biggest problem. I go at things like full on, both hobnail boots in straight away. Always done it with everything. So I reluctantly eventually had to walk away from it because I just couldn't hit the shot. I went from making century breaks to I couldn't pot 2 balls in a row. And it was absolutely devastating for me. I still miss it to this day. Weirdly enough, the blind thing helped because now I definitely couldn't do it, so I've moved well away from it, Wow. But I played some big names, I played some decent tournaments, I played Stephen Hendry once, and people like that, and I played, you won't know these, James Watana once, I played Alex Higgins and beat him twice.
So how long did you play for then?
It was about, in total, it was about 7 years, I think.
7 years total, a professional snooker player.
I shouldn't really call myself professional because in them days you had to get your ticket and all that, which I never did. Okay. But I was playing every day for money all over the country. In fact, all over Europe at times.
Sounds pretty professional to me.
Yeah, I was making good money. I was doing all right, until that Yips came along. I just got myself a sponsor, which is one of the things I was after, an agent. I was after that for the whole time. And this guy just walked in and watched me play and said, "Have you got an agent?" And I said, "No, I'm looking for one." And he said, "You've just got yourself one." And he was a very rich fella. Wow. I used to have a bit of I think it's called a juxtaposition, where if I practiced my arse off, right, I was ready, I was sharp, and I could go to a tournament and possibly win it. But I wasn't sharp enough. So I was practicing away, but didn't have the money to go in the tournament. So I'd go away and do a part-time job to raise the money to go in the tournament. But of course, I couldn't practice at the same time. Yeah. So I'd have the money to go in, get there, and not be match fit and get beat.
But then without doing that, you would never have been able to get there in the first place. So that's really tricky. That's tough.
Yeah. So this guy Warren came along. He's a very rich fella. He said, I'll get you a driver. I'll get you a car. I'll take you to the tournaments. I'll pay your entrance fee. You just practice. Wow. And it was great. And I just got him, and a month later I got the bloody yips. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He didn't understand the yips at all. He just thought I'd bottled it, and I hadn't. It was just the yips. So of course, in a very short space of time, he walked away again. He's not going to keep putting money into someone that can't pot 2 balls, is it?
No, but everything happens for a reason. It's something that I live by, good, bad, the ugly. Yeah. Even when you don't know what that reason is sometimes, and some really horrendous things happen, I always believe everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I agree.
So following playing snooker, what happened then?
I've missed out quite an important bit actually around the time my dad left.
Okay.
I should have been a footballer, mate, believe it or not.
I've missed that, sorry.
I should have been a footballer.
Okay.
Again, left-footed.
Yeah.
Quite a rare species in the football world. I was doing junior blue stuff and all of that. And in 1977, long before your time, we had
way back when.
Now football really was my first love. It was my natural thing. I think I dedicated myself to snooker later on because I'd missed this boat, and it was my dad, who was also a footballer for some time later on, that he was pushing me to do it as much as I loved it, and because of what was going on between him and my mother, this was my way to punish him, and I wouldn't play. I refused to play, and he was dragging me to all these things, and everyone was showing an interest. So in 1977, they had what you call the Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup, because it was the Silver Jubilee 77. And what they did was all the local Sunday teams and the amateur teams around the country, they had a year-long tournament, and we won it. At Denton West End we were. We won it, and we played at Main Road.
Yeah.
We won 1-0, and I scored the goal to win the Jubilee Cup. So at the time there was a fella called Bob Latsford who played for Everton, and he was being lauded because he was the first guy to get 30 goals in a season. And then they found out in the amateur game I'd scored 31. So they got us together on TV, and I was like this little scruffy, snot-nosed kid, you know. Didn't have a pot to piss in.
Scruffy, snot-nosed kid from Levenshulme.
Yeah, which is like, you know, and it's like I'm stood with this professional footballer who was like God to me, you know. And they did a little shop about us on the Granada reports or whatever it was, you know. And he's got 30 goals, he's got 31, this kid's going to make it, blah, blah, blah. But I literally stopped to spite my dad, which it probably cut my nose off to spite my face a little bit, didn't I?
Do you mind me asking what was happening between him and your mum?
He was cheating on her all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad was a philanderer. He was, as a man now, looking back, because I'm only 3 years younger than my dad was when he died now, so I can see it more from his point of view. But I remain convinced that my dad was a sex addict.
Okay.
Because it was constant. It was constant, you know. And my mum was no angel with him either, to be fair. She certainly didn't do anything like that, but she nagged him, you know what I mean? And no wonder, really, but I was on my mum's side, full stop.
Yeah.
You know, end of. So I just, the only way I could get back at my dad was to refuse to play.
Yeah.
And it worked. It absolutely smashed him, and that's why he left. So...
He felt that strongly about you not playing football?
Oh, he said he blamed that because of what I did to him. I embarrassed him. My dad couldn't stand. My dad was one of these that, even though we were all sat inside, cold because there was no heat, we had no electricity for 2.5 years. We were that poor, and we were barely eating. But my dad would go outside in a posh suit that he'd got in a charity shop, telling the neighbours everything's absolutely fantastic.
And do you believe that's the reason why he left?
Yeah, I do. I think it was the straw for him that broke the camel's back. But it's still disgusting to blame me.
Yeah.
And to
that's the reason why I asked you. Because...
And to name it as well. And the others, straight away, the brothers were looking at me like, all right, okay.
That's the reason why I asked you, because for a father to say that's the reason why he's leaving. Yeah. That seems like an excuse to me.
It is. Well, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. I don't think my dad could lie straight in bed, if I'm honest with you. Do you know what I mean? Because, so he was just a liar, he was a cheater, he was exactly the sort of bloke I can't stand and never could. Not just because of him. Yeah. You know, I think monogamy is fantastic, actually. And it did take me a long while to learn that, because I went through a period myself where I was floundering a little bit, and then I realised I was following in his footsteps. You know, and I learned quite early on, this is just not on, you know. As a young man knocking around town, it didn't matter to me. If it had a pulse, it was fine, you know. Do you know what I mean? And that's just the bare truth of it. But I learned. You did. And in my much later life now, over the last 10 years, I've gathered, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, I've got a whole new respect for women that I never had before. I don't think they should... Sorry, I don't think they should get special treatment. I really don't. But I believe in absolute equality, and that has to go across the board for me. But I did see women in a certain way, and limited use, if you like. But when I've watched things like the UFC, people like Ronda Rousey, and I really love these people. They're good fighters, they're good inventors, they're everything. Of course they are. You know, I'm old enough to remember when the days when guys were saying, "Look at that woman driving a bus; it's bloody ridiculous." You know, and it's pathetic, really. And we are the same. We just are, you know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there definitely are maybe hormonal or biological differences that make us stronger at certain things, which when together you can make a dream team. I'm not saying that 100%. There's biological differences that we're naturally wired towards more of a certain way. I believe that.
I agree.
But I'm glad your viewpoint has changed on women now, though, especially. I mean,
I've got daughters for a start.
Yeah,
you know,
well, your daughter runs your business with you as well, doesn't she?
Without her, I couldn't do this. With my disabilities, I couldn't do it without her, and that's a fact.
So that's your business now. So between being a young lad from Levenshulme, football, snooker, then what?
A little bit of kickboxing, nothing, not even nearly professional, but I was determined to get all the way to black as fast as I could.
Yeah.
You know, and all of that. And as it happens, I didn't make that one because I got shafted a little bit off somebody. Okay. And I stopped at brown, which is basically black, but you just haven't sat the test.
Yeah.
And then when all my cancer came, as you know, and all that, I just couldn't do it anymore because my bones are at risk.
So what happened work-wise at that point? What was going on work-wise?
I went and drove a black cab in Manchester Centre for about 8 years on nights.
Yeah.
And it gave me a window to the world. And I've always been a thinker. I've always been more cerebral than physical, really. But and I started to just wonder about, I think it was a very early episode of Dragon's Den. And I listened to them quite intently. And I used to be a big reader. When I could see a book, I used to love reading. And I started making little inventions, little things to bridge a gap in the world, if you like. And obviously the big thing, as it still is probably, is energy saving and stuff like that. So the top and tail is I invented a switch for lighting, for LED lighting. Okay. And I called it Span Switch. Which was a bit of a coincidence because I started it with two mates and they were called Stephen and Neil. So it's Stephen, Phil and Neil Span, which is weird. We called it Span Switch even before we put that together, which was a bit weird. So
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, going back to that. And the obstacles that I found, having made the switch and making it work, physically making it work, would you believe, sounds daft now, we got what it basically does. You know when you walk into a room now, they're everywhere now, where you walk into a room in a big building and the light comes on automatically. And it's great, it saves energy, but there's no one in there, the light goes off, all good. Problem is sometimes you could be, if it's a toilet for example, you could still be sat in there for whatever reason and the light still goes out. Yeah. Because it's just on a timer. Mm-hmm. So I added a switch inside the switch, if you like, that means it was re-triggerable. So when you move at all, even slightly, the clock on the timer restarts until you've actually left. So you could be sat in there an hour, the light wouldn't go out, but when you do leave, it still goes out.
So that invention was you?
Yes. No, not the ones in the rooms. What I did was I was driving home from all places from Scunthorpe one night, coming down the M62. And there's a bit just before, you know where the guy that lives in the middle of the two lanes?
Yes.
Just before that, there's a bit that's unlit for miles and miles. Mm. And I thought, Jesus, it's dark. You know what I mean? I was on the motorway, you could see like the cat's eye things and all of that. And then as I came home, I was driving up the 67 towards where I live, Glossop Way. And empty motorway, it was the middle of the night and it was fully illuminated. And I just had a flash thought of, why can't we have this light, where it's not needed, transferred to somewhere where it is? You know, on the M62. Yeah. And I thought, that would make sense, wouldn't it? And then I thought about these rooms when you walk in and the light goes on. And why can't we have just a big version of that for cars? So when there's a car coming along, it illuminates the road ahead of you. And then once you've gone through, it goes out again. And I thought, that must be doable. It's got to be. So on a smaller scale, I got a scale electric off eBay, would you believe? And glued around the edge. Remember the old KFC straws they used to bend in at the end? And I got a load of them and put a little LED light in the end of it. And as the cars went round, the lights were going off, on, as the car went round. So that proves the concept. So I thought, I'm going to do that on a bigger scale. And I contacted a local council. And I got them to give me a test road. And did it, and it worked.
So how does somebody that's grown up with your upbringing, and you've not mentioned, as far as I'm aware, any engineering background or anything like that, how did you get to the point of actually making this invention bulletproof?
It's a case of you surround yourself with smart people, very often smarter than you. In fact, the little motto that I live by, it's on my X account or Twitter account. It might even be on my Facebook as well. So you know the little motto that you can put at the start. Yeah. Your signature, I think they call it. And mine is, cleverest is he who surrounds himself with those cleverer than he. Yeah. Which is actually an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense, and yet it does. Because cleverest is he. If he's the cleverest, how can he surround himself with people that are cleverer than him? because he's the cleverest. So it actually doesn't make sense, but it does. It's an oxymoron. So that's what I've done. And I found a guy that was technically able to do the wiring and the motherboards and stuff like that, and the PCBs and that kind of stuff. And then I found another guy that did software writing, coding. And eventually this switching of a light, I had it where 100 yards of lights would come on ahead of a car, and it would be triggered by the previous switch, so this bit's lit before you get to it. So it never looks any different to the driver. And then when you've gone, it goes out. It saves a fortune. Now I put that to the Highways Agency in the UK, and I got very idle about this. I was sat out for months and months watching the flow of traffic, would you believe? And I even had a mate who worked at Eye in the Sky, Piccadilly Radio, in the helicopter.
You might need to say that again, sorry.
That's all right. So I had a mate who works for the Eye in the Sky at Piccadilly Radio, in the helicopter doing the traffic reports. Yeah. And he gave me access to the cameras on the motorway, so it saved me sitting outside, which I've been doing for months. I could watch it at home on my computer.
You're like the train spotter, but the motorway the car spotter.
Many, I'm talking 2 and 3 in the morning, so many times the cops would be pulling me saying, "What are you doing sat here like this?" Which is understandable. Yeah. When I told them, they're like, "What?" You having a laugh? I said, "No, it sounds unbelievable, but it's true." So it worked beautifully, and so with all the counting that I did, it gets a bit anal this, I'm afraid, but there were 7.2 million lights on the motorways in the UK.
Wow.
And they were costing 28 pence per night to run each. So 28 pence, 7.2 million times a night. I got that down to 11 pence. Wow. So the saving was huge. And they told me, "Go away, not interested."
Why?
So I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because you have to have something called an UMSUG code." All right. I said, "What the bloody hell's one of them?" I was learning as I went. I had no clue what was going on here. And it means unmetered supply user group. And until you've got an UMSUG code by them, you can't have any street furniture, as it's called. You can't put anything on the highways in the UK unless you've got an UMSUG code. Okay. You can only get an UMSUG code if you've got a definite on-off moment. So I have to predict when cars are going to be there and when they're not. Well, how am I supposed to do that? So I said I could do it retrospectively, taking last year's figures, and if this invention would have been in place then, how much you would have saved. I thought I'd got round it with that one, and they said no, I had to go before a committee. I went to London half a dozen times, sat in front of this committee of people, all of whom said no, you can't have one. So I did a bit of digging, and I found out that 11 of the 12 people on the committee were high up executives in energy companies. So they don't want me to save energy because it means they make less money. So
that makes sense, doesn't it?
But the changing point for me, and I don't want to labour this bit too much, but the changing moment for me was I had some offices in the centre of Manchester that were pretty expensive, and the guy who owned the building came to see me one day, and he said, "Is it true what I've heard what you're doing?" He's a Jewish fellow called Elliot Feingold. Hello, Elliot, if you're watching, and he will be. And he's a very, very wealthy man. And he said, "I love it. I really love it. Can I buy in?" And he's a billionaire. The guy's just so rich. He's richer than God, as he would say. So he did. He bought into the company, and the difference was almost instant. Because, quick example, I was trying to get this invention also into normal streets, not just motorways, car parks, you name it, everywhere. And I was trying to get an interview or an appointment with the local manager of the NCP, and I couldn't get listened to. He wouldn't even return me emails. I just thought, what's going on? He got me an appointment with the owner of NCP, Mr. Tucker.
So you just dropped in there as well. You had a few offices in Manchester. Just a few offices in Manchester.
I had a whole floor of one of his buildings. Yeah.
So what was that for? Because that was prior to the invention, wasn't it?
It was when I was pushing the invention, when I was trying to get it going. And I thought, well, if I've got decent central Manchester office space, it gives us more credibility in the world. Yeah. Plus, at that time, I'd already started. Somebody had taken the invention, Eon of all people. And we put it with the lighting and the span switch in all the subway tunnels around Oldham, Rochdale. There's loads of them out there still. Yeah. And our lighting system's still in there.
So how did And I only know this from us previously chatting as well. Yeah. How did Abu Dhabi come into the mix?
Well, when the Highways Agency wouldn't play ball with me because they said, they told me off the record, somebody told me, listen, you've got your UBSUB code to a degree, but I had to declare it every month. And they made it awkward as they could. Somebody said to me, go out to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, because those people are really progressive with things like energy saving. Just sell it to them, they'll love it. And I thought, really? So I went out there anyway. And the timing couldn't, again, fortuitous timing, was the Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre had just been opened. And I suppose it's a claim to fame for me. I was the very first person to do a presentation there, the brand new. And I had a moment of imposter syndrome with it. You know, this Levenzoom snot-nosed little kid was giving a speech about his invention to some of the richest people on the planet.
If only social media and content was a thing back then.
It would have been massive. It really would. It really would. And it would definitely. But before I even got down the stairs, off the stage, I'd had 3 offers to buy my company.
Wow.
Which I said no to. One was a Canadian company and 2, from Dubai. And I said no because I've got plans for it. Big plans for it. And we're going away, and it was going well. The Rochdale and Oldham thing happened. We proved the concept now for sure. Made good money just off the subways. So now I want to do the roads. I want to get some, So I went out to Vilnius in Lithuania.
Of all places.
Of all places. I was there about 10 weeks, I think. And they had a really dilapidated World War II lighting system.
What made you want to go there?
Because they had a really old dilapidated lighting system, it was a mess.
And did you know that, or?
I did, because somebody had rang me up from the EBRD, which is European Bank of Research and Development in London. It's a very strict Russian-run bank. And they said, we've heard about your span switch stuff. You think it would work in a whole city? So I actually went away and had a CGI made of their actual city with 2 different meters of lighting that city up. One as it is now, and one if you put our span switch system into the whole city. And the savings were massive. I played it in real time for them. So you could see it clearly how much money you would save from it. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So I spent a lot of time out there. I like Vilnius, it's a great place. Beer's very good. They brew it in sheds at the back of the pubs often.
Oh, wow.
So it's like you need a spoon with some of it, But so it's out there now, and it's also in the car parks of the Opera House in Sydney.
Wow.
It's in the car parks of the Burj Al Arab in Dubai.
Wow.
The switch is still up there, and it's also in the tunnels at Rochdale.
Yeah. So did you sell out then? Did you sell the company, or did you sell?
I did in the end. I had to do, because what happened? I had big plans. Elliot, the Jewish guy, was telling me, listen, we're going to float it. Keep it. Yeah, he knows all the tricks for that kind of stuff. I was clueless, really. The idea was we were going to float it and leave with an absolute fortune, retaining a small amount ongoing, which would be my ideal. Figures were bandied around. If this goes right, within a year, I was ready for leaving with about 60 million quid.
Wow.
Roughly.
That helps in life, doesn't it? As a young boy from Levenshulme.
I think I'd get by on that. I know I'd probably need a whip round now and again, but I think I'd get by, But again, it went to rap because of this.
Okay.
This happened, and all of a sudden I couldn't even see a computer in front of my face.
What happened?
I woke up one day and my central vision was like looking through thick polythene, and I'd had something called a central scotoma, which is basically a blister in the middle of each eyeball. Right. To get 1 at all is unlucky. To get 2 is extremely unlucky. To get 2 right in the centre of both eyes just never happens, but it did to me. And
are there any causes for that, or is that just something that you've...
They said that probably, they don't know for sure, but I probably had an infection on my optic nerve. And this is one thing that you have to remember, people should remember this. They said you've obviously done something like sneezed or coughed, or worse and more likely, when you're in company and you're going to sneeze and you go, because you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It causes strain at the back of the eyes and little tiny veins pop. And this infection has gone into one of them.
Wow.
I've held the sneeze in because I don't want to embarrass myself. So for the sake of being embarrassed somewhere, I lost my bloody
Just sneeze. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that happened at the same time that you were going to sell out?
I was thinking about it when we were going to do the floating thing, which means I could have left with a fortune. But so I just thought he's got to go because somebody stole a lot of money off me, 107 grand actually, because I was trusting the wrong people because I couldn't even see the computer. There was nobody around me that I really trusted, and this guy changed the bank details to his own from the payments we were getting from Eon and places like that, and took a lot of money. So, wow. But it you know, it happens, and I got it back. It's not an issue. People that were working with me were brilliant, but and there was one guy I could definitely trust, but he was just too busy with other stuff, you know. So
instead of floating,
I sold.
You sold.
Yeah, and it was all right. I owed a lot of money out at the time because of other projects that we were starting to take on.
Yeah. So
I didn't leave with that much, really.
And then that's obviously a massive life change for you, losing how much of your vision?
I've got nothing in the centre. I've got nothing in my left eye at all, and this one I've got nothing in the centre.
Yeah.
Like looking at you now, you've got no face, no head. If I look here now, I can see you.
Wow.
If I look right at you, you've literally got no head.
With waking up one day and that's the change to your vision, that...
Well, no, what they said was the blisters are in the middle, which is damned unlucky, but they said they will go away, the blisters, and you should be fine, but what you have to do is not pop them, because if you pop them, they leave a little tiny scar in the centre, very, very, very small scar, but because they're right in the centre, it will leave a blind spot.
Okay.
And of course, I was going nowhere near my eyes. You can get like an itch, and you just without thinking go like that. And they said you've got to be careful not to do that. And of course, I didn't do it. But then I woke up one day, they were both bleeding. I'd done it in my sleep. I rubbed my eyes in my sleep, and they both bled and left the central blindness.
Wow.
So and then I developed macular degeneration on top of that. So the blind spot's growing, and eventually I'll have nothing at all.
Mentally, how do you deal with that? Going from somebody who's
tough.
Just flown across the world and
tough.
Has been delivering these huge speeches, you're an inventor, you've invented a product that has saved a lot of people a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you wake up one day and then it's progressively got worse. Mentally, how do you deal with that?
It's tough. I've had moments of, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I handled it, blah, blah, blah. There's been times where I've thought about jumping off something high. There has. I'm not going to lie about that. I live near Glossop, as I said, there's some railway arches up there, and they look very inviting for a while, I'll be honest with you. Because I thought, it's just crap, this. All the things, it seemed like, for a while, it seemed like the world was conspiring against me. For anything that I seemed to enjoy, I can't do anymore. I can't read, I can't drive. I just bought my dream car as well. I lost my licence. Only an X5, but to me, that's what I always wanted, an X5. I just got one, and now I lost my licence. So I can't read, I can't drive, I can't act anymore because I was starting to get into a bit of acting. I can't read scripts anymore. There's nothing. I can't play snooker, I can't play football, nothing, because my vision range now, apart from the blind spot, as I've just explained, if someone was to kick the ball to me in a game of football, I don't see it till it's about 2 foot away. I don't even see it coming. I don't know, no idea. And then suddenly, bam! It's it's right in your face. Snooker, I can't see the end of the cue. Never mind anything else.
Yeah.
So reading, I can't see. It's only a little dot, right? To explain it, it's only a little tiny dot. So in a big room like this, that little bit missing is not a big problem.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Whenever I look, it goes with me. It's annoying, but it's not that big a problem. But that little dot, when you read a book, it covers the whole page.
It's massive.
So you can't. It's so annoying.
So a lot's happened between then and now.
Yeah.
So what was the shift point for you from saying you were suicidal at one point?
I was, yeah, depressed.
What was the shifting point for you?
The shifting point for me was this place. I thought, I love the industry. Yeah, I love most of the people in it. Not all, I must admit, but most. And I just thought I can be involved in the industry that I really love at this point in my life. So
you mentioned, before you got that diagnosis, had you just started getting into script reading? Is that right?
Yeah, and writing and acting and all of that stuff, yeah. Yeah.
So from there, that led you into wanting to create a business within the industry? Yeah,
so at least I could take part in it and become maybe a director, a filmmaker, although I bought these particular cameras because they work for me in terms of when things are in focus, they light up in very bright green, which I can see. I can see backlit stuff a little bit, like my phone on my iPad. If I hold it close enough, I can still read it a little bit. But after 15 minutes, my head's pounding with it. It's just banging.
So how long have you had Magoo for now?
We're in year 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
The 6th year of Magoo. And you shoot as well, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. We shoot, we do short reels, we do voice reels, all that stuff.
But you physically shoot on a camera, and to have the vision that you have, to be able to shoot.
Only because I've got these, and big up to Blackmagic production cameras, because without these I couldn't do it.
Making it accessible for yourself to do it, and many other people that are out there as well.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So within these 6 years,
yeah,
I say a lot of other things have happened as well.
Well, COVID came a month after we opened, and I got locked down.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of business owners will relate to that as well.
Yeah,
so I'm
definitely.
sure you've got no support of the government or anything like that for being a new business.
Yeah, well, since I've been here, we've had COVID. I lost my mother, and I've had 2 lots of cancer. So
well, let's talk about that then.
It's a bit. There's a lot happened while I've been here.
I think a lot of people say, don't they, that you never get the good without the bad.
Yeah.
And everybody's degree of bad is different.
When people come to me and say things like, I've heard what happened to you and so much worse than mine, I'm like, no, our own problems are our own problems. We're not, and there's no good, better or worse problem. If it's bad for you, it's bad for you. If yours is losing a nail and mine is getting spinal cancer, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel shit, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
What
year was your diagnosis?
21.
Okay, 21, so almost 5 years ago now.
Sorry, 22, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
22.
A lot of people talk about that moment and hearing the weight of that word because we know what it's capable of.
Yeah.
What went through your mind when you got told you had cancer? And
dead.
Please feel free to go into the type of cancer as well.
Well, I started off... Just a very slight backstory. Just when it used to be over there in my office, and I fell off a chair, very similar to this one. It snapped. And I hurt my hip. And some years earlier I'd broke my hip, so I was worried I'd re-broke it. So my doctor said, just go to Salford and get it checked. So I did. And they came out and they said, your hip's fine. I went, oh, good. Starts to get jumping out of the bed. He said, no. You've got a tumour on your spine the size of your fist, this big. And I'm like, the word tumour sounds a bit... He said, yeah, you've got a cancerous tumour on your spine. And it's what's known as a vascular tumour. It's made out of old veins that have wrapped himself into a ball, and they're pulsing. It's pulsing. I said, what with my heartbeat? He said, exactly that. I said, and if that one of them pulses, it will pop. And if it pops, you're gone in under a minute. It's not pleasant. He said, it's inside the vertebra of the spine pushing its way out. Wow. And the only thing I'd noticed, I hadn't really had many symptoms. I thought I had sciatica. And I've noticed the ground was feeling spongy for about 2 weeks before, and I felt like like Mr. Soft advert. I felt a bit like that. I thought, it's a bit weird. I'm getting numbness in my feet, and the whole ground felt like it was doing this when I was walking. And then what really the catalyst for me then decided to do something. I was sat in here one day, and this leg started going like this on its own, literally just flicking up on its own. The whole leg. I'm like, I didn't feel myself do that. So I went, but anyway, they said, look, you've got this cancer on your spine, it's got to come off. So I said, right, how soon can you get me in? He went, no, you don't understand, I'm doing it now, right now. That's got to come out now. I'm prepared. I've got a team going down now to prepare the theatre. You'll be in the theatre in 45 minutes.
Wow.
10-hour operation, and it's very, very, very risky.
So you had 45 minutes to mentally take that in and go down to theatre? And
I told the doctor, which I've always done this with medical people, just talk to me like a person. I'm not the brightest bulb, but I'm not stupid either. So, tell me. And he said, have you got children? I said, yeah. He said, I suggest you phone them. Shit, okay. Now that really is blunt. He said, this is high risk. It's a high risk operation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so down we went. And when I came to, it took him about 2 days to bring me around fully because it was a 10-hour operation, but it was done in 5.
Wow. And
when they rang Beth to tell her, he's just come out of surgery, she thought I was gone because it had done so quick. Turns out it just went so well, so...
And Beth's your daughter that runs Magoo with you.
Yeah. Sorry. So they said, look, we couldn't get it out, all of it, because it was so embedded. So they took half the spine away with it, with the cancer still attached, and replaced it with titanium rods. Wow. So the top half of my spine is metal, titanium, which scares me to this day because I always feel like it's going to snap. I can feel it occasionally. It's a bit weird. So it was tough to deal with that because I was genuinely, when they said the word cancer, as you alluded to just then, all I could hear was cancer, all but like an echo in an endless echo chamber. And in my mind, I saw my funeral, saw my kids crying and all of that stuff. So that was tough to deal with. And I genuinely, truly thought I was about to die as they were wheeling me in and putting the stuff in to knock me out. I thought, it's almost finished. So luckily,
here you are.
Here we are still, stubborn as anything. They told me 2 years to learn to walk again.
Yeah.
And about 7 weeks later, I was here building this wall.
Wow, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
It's just stubborn. It's stupid, really. But I thought, well, I'll rest when I'm dead.
Yeah.
I have to mention Gary Booth, who was kind of my mentor when I was going through it all, because he'd been through the identical 7 years before me. And he's one of these people that gives his time to others that are going through it. And I think, honestly, without him, I don't think I'd have found the strength. It was him that really, even massively helps me. He was as important as the surgeon.
It sort of goes back to as well what you were saying before about surrounding yourself with people who are more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And that really helped you through in this scenario.
Yeah,
it sounds like.
It did, it really did.
But Phil, and I mean, it's amazing what you've created beyond all of that. But that it didn't end there, did it?
I'm proud of it.
Yeah. But it didn't end there.
The cancer?
Yeah.
No, the spinal cancer was gone because the spine was gone with it. Mm-hmm. But then it left me with a blood cancer, which they at first suspected it was leukemia, which is a very dangerous cancer. But it does have a weaker cousin called myeloma. It's very similar. When you do these tests that they had to do, which were painful as hell, by the way, it has to be one or the other at this point. You've either got leukemia or myeloma. And luckily for me, again, touch wood, it was myeloma, because my surgeon was that familiar with me at this point, because you know what I'm like, I rub along with anybody, do you know what I mean? And we got to the first day in terms, Matthew, and he said to me, if Carlsberg did cancer, this is the one to get. If you're going to get it at all, get this one, because it's so treatable.
Okay.
And he said it does kill you in 2 to 5 years, though. You know, it can do. Now, that's a bit of a skewed statistic, because most people, you don't get myeloma until you've been mid to late 70s. And most people die anyway then, so they can't really pin down the statistics on it. So what he said is, though, there's a stem cell transplant. Just the word transplant had me going, oh, shit, you know, what on earth? And it's literally, they had to go on a machine for about 16 hours, a few days in a row. You've got a cannula in here and one in here, and he's taking all your blood out, and it passes through this filter machine which extracts all your stem cells, and then you put your blood back in this way. So it's literally going around for 16 hours.
Is this the time where you were in an incubator?
No, that was after the. It was just after this. Okay. They take your stem cells a few weeks before, and then they take them away and freeze them, and like they took 4 million stem cells out of me. But while you're in that state, this is when I ended up going into the isolation. Because while you're in that state, you have literally zero immunity. Not low, not a bad, literally none. Someone sneezes on you, you can die. Simple as that. So you've got to be protected from the whole world.
And how long were you encapsulated for?
17 days.
What did you do in those 17 days? What went through your mind in that time period?
I was bored, I was fed up, I was scared, I was angry, I was, why me, you know, all that. And then I decided to make it a positive thing, and I wrote a film called Beyond Myeloma, which you're in.
Yeah, which a lot of us are part of.
Yeah, so I wrote that while I was in having treatment, because I thought, well, it filled me, without my phone and my iPad, I'd have been nuts.
Phil, you've been through a hell of a lot.
Yeah, loads.
And to be told that you might not even live past 2 years, potentially, as well. 2 different forms of cancer, one after the other, everything with your vision as well.
Yeah.
And to be here today, to have the successful business that you have. You're my agent, you're a lot of people's agent who we're all very grateful for.
I love you guys, I really do, all of you.
And we love and have an abundance of respect for you as well. And I think everything that you've been through, to sit here today and talk to me about your life, how you have, I feel very grateful to know you as a person.
Oh, thank you.
I really do. So I would say, having been through everything you've been through, what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's going through something particularly challenging?
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give to them of how to get through a difficult situation?
If I had to encapsulate it in a short sentence, it would be true to yourself. It really would. Other people will tell you whatever it suits them to tell you. Be true to yourself, and just enjoy every moment. I mean, never more so. I was always a little bit like that anyway, but never more so do I appreciate every single day. In fact, did I tell you about the wooden test?
No.
When I finished my chemotherapy, because I had 18 months of chemo after my surgery, while I was building walls and stuff, straight into the belly, which was horrid, and I put 6 stone on with it as well, as you can very well see.
I'd rather you be 6 stone heavier and sat opposite me
than
absolutely. 6 feet under.
Yeah, there you go. So this nurse said to me, 2 things I want to tell you before you leave on my last day of chemo. She said, we've given you a life, now go live it. And she said, and always remember the wooden test. And the wooden test is, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is push out your elbows. If you don't feel wood, you're doing okay.
So that's the wooden test.
That's the wooden test, yeah.
I was thinking it would be this like spiritual thing. But no, just check you're not in a box.
Exactly. And so today, I'm not in a box, so I'm getting out of this bed and I'm going to do stuff. That's it.
Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure to sit down and chat to you today.
Sorry,
thank you so much for letting me on as a guest presenter as well, and technically taking your spot.
You've done it way better
in the
than I
blind
do,
truth.
so don't worry.
I don't know about that.
You're ever so slightly prettier than me.
Thank you so much, and I'm sure Phil will see you in the next one.
I will. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks, Tash.